Thanks, everybody. The talk this morning from Alan Blackwell resonated greatly with us because we've been in a disciplinary team putting together a master's program, which I'd like to talk to you about, which it forms the basis of my own PhD studies. As you probably realise, just from grey hair, I come at this as a mature student and also somebody who's a comparatively late entrant to the university system. Prior to that, I worked in publishing, so my day job at City, my main job is running a master's in publishing studies. This will come back, that thread will come back in as I progress. But I wanted to give you an idea about the MICL, what is it, and offer some provocations from my reading towards my PhD, and discussion with a rather interesting conclusion, given what we've just heard from Co about leadership. So the MICL is a product of many of the people you've seen around today, and putting our heads together some stage about in 2008. It really got going. We were offered some funding at City for interdisciplinary centres, and all those things Alan Blackwell said about interdisciplinarity, absolutely we've lived. We launched the program in 2010 as the main fruit of the Centre for Creativity in Professional Practice. The other interdisciplinary centres which were founded at the same time have not survived. Ours did, largely because of this program. It was initially part-time. It was across the university with almost all the schools represented, not quite. And I'm going to tell you a bit more about that. One thing that's innovative about it is you can leave with an M.Ing.Ov, if you wish. Interestingly, very few students have opted for that. More have gone for the MSc, and then also the MA is another option. And theoretically, if you're working with me, I work in the School of Arts and Social Sciences, then you come out with an MA, but several of my dissertations supervisees have come through with the MSc, in fact. And its aims, broadly, to meet the needs of future creativity and innovation leaders. Very interesting. So we have these ICL themes to go through. Quite a broad claim. This is what we do. Interdisciplinarity is lived from the very beginning. The first module the students do is a creative writing module, which has quite profound effects, I'm told. Can I see any writers in the room? No. So they're all around us, but they're not in the room, so do speak to them about it. And they're really encouraged to write about themselves in a way which I think for most people embarking on what is broadly a management course is really quite confronting, or just it's what they've signed up for. They know they're signing up for this unusual experience. Alongside that, Sarah Jones runs one of our two design modules, and Neil Maiden, who we've just heard, runs the other, which is where? Somewhere here? Top left. Top left, that one. So these are our two design modules. Creative writing module, and mine, so top and tail of the program. This is the last, the creativity in the creative industries. We also do two modules which have always been based in CAS, creative problem solving and leadership and delivering innovation, both owned by Clive Holtham, who's around today, but delivered by Andy Wilkins, who's also around today. And then we have a law module and psychology of creativity and innovation. Now this is the program as it was delivered. As it was delivered this year. Now, if you can see well enough, we've got short, fat modules and long, thin modules, and basically that means we have some modules delivered in workshops over 5 days, 3 and then 2, and some modules delivered in more traditional 10 weeks of lectures. This one, which is my main concern, started off as a short, fat module, and the students almost went completely bananas in the first year, so it's now a long, thin module, and law's become a short, fat module instead, which is a different story, which I'm not getting into so much here. I think it's useful for the purposes of today, because these are such big ideas, and some of the questions we've had already in the room this afternoon, touch on them. What on earth are these ideas? How can you define creativity? Quite right. So these are just some definitions I've picked out from the various modules. Innovation being defined as turning ideas into action. Quoting, creativity that ships, is one of the definitions of innovation out in the world. Creativity is concerned with new and complex, completely original, the completely new and completely original, whereas innovation deals more with the application of novelty and is a social activity. These are definitions that we use. Leadership, continuous self-development. Inclusiveness in creating benign structures, which they talk about a lot in that module. Leading creative design processes within established constraints. Working definitions. Creativity is obviously a bigger, perhaps more cultural notion. The ability to produce work that is both novel and appropriate. Neil just quoted from this. And then the very interesting distinction between psychologically creative as opposed to human creativity. So I very much use this in my module. So I'm not asking them to be human race creative. I'm asking them to be personally creative. And there's a question, there's a point, an issue about creativity, situated creativity, within a certain context, which we explore. So the module I'm particularly focused on in my research is the one that I lead. So it's a participative research. And this is what we did in this module this year. So we just finished it. We had the show last Friday. So it's an almost completely untaught module, and it certainly wasn't the first year. I put shoehorn more teaching in there, because it's almost entirely active, participative, experiential, if you like. So we start off with, obviously, how they're going to be assessed, because nobody can concentrate on anything else until you know that. And then we go to the V&A Museum, and I invite the students to be in the V&A, turn their phones onto flight mode, if they must use them at all. Don't talk to anyone, and just go out there and be in the museum. Now, this is not the first time we do that in the course. We start off at induction, doing something very similar, a derive, a walk, where you are encouraged to notice. Quite a lot of the interesting theme of noticing, observing has come up today. And the reason why they have to start sketching is that one of their assessments at the very end is an artifact show. You have to develop a piece of art and display it. We have then a series of other workshops which support the group performances in week 7. So they have improv and comedy. I'll come back to complete coherence. Music, acting, and then this rather wonderful guided choreographed walk, which we've done this year in Greenwich Park for the first time, a couple of preceding years in Regent's Park, developed by a young choreographer with funding from the Arts Council, which is an immersive audio and embodied experience. And I want to come back to this because complete coherence work with leaders to encourage them to listen to their bodies. It is as simple as that, and as revolutionary as that. So a theme of the modules become more and more about being embodied creatures. Our heads not simply being carried around by these inconvenient things called bodies, but coming to terms with the fact that we are embodied, that everything we understand about the world, the metaphors we use, the way in which we speak, the way in which we communicate is very, very physical. And we ignore that, by and large, in educational institutions, except we don't, because how on earth does anybody learn anything that's useful? So embodiment becomes a very important theme of what we do. The performances are obviously, they're standing up on a stage, not obviously, but they're standing up on a stage performing 8-minute plays. Talk about embodiment, taking risks, working together as a team. The creative writing, of course, at the beginning has helped with that. And then we're heading towards this even, if you like, more personally exposing event, which is the art show at the end, which we had last Friday, which is a quite extraordinary, moving affair. It has been the 5 years that we've run it. We have an art workshop leading towards it. I then give them some research and assignment review, but if that's intending to help them position what they've done so they can write a reflective report, then they have to go away and do it. So it's, I think one of the things to say is it's surprising the profundity of the effect of the program as a whole on the people who've been through it so far. It's one of the reasons why I want to research it and tell the story. And if you have pieces created by somebody who's put a lot of themselves into it, very difficult to mark. I do find it very, very difficult to put a number on. But it has produced a range of things which people are very, by and large, very proud of. Very different, of course, from a standard management course. I'm trying to understand what is this that we do? What is it that we do to these people? It's very interesting to come across some ideas in the literature which are helpful. So I'm going to offer you just 4 provocations from the literature, which I'm beginning to find increasingly helpful. One is the idea that management education is an identity workspace. My day job is running a publishing masters, where people sign up, they want to be publishers, they're generally younger. They have different motivations, so it's been very interesting then working with these older, by and large, more open-minded people perhaps as to where they're going. But they're definitely, this resonates with me. It makes sense to me that the business school is an identity workspace, a holding environment, it's a basic idea from psychoanalysis, where people do identity work. Makes sense? Yeah. We think we're selling them a whole package of knowledge. No, we're not really. We're giving them a space and an opportunity. And those of us who've done master's courses, I think we're a bit young to appreciate it when we're 18, but certainly as an adult, I'm sure most of us who've done these courses would agree. It's a social context. And very often in business schools, the literature says people come when they're either seeking to stabilize an identity or to transition their identity. It's research which shows this is what's going on for most people. And there's an argument, too, that the workplace is now so fluid, people's jobs are not for life, and roles are changing so much, the psychological contract is changing so quickly, that actually often the business school becomes a place where you might take those things which you can no longer be held at work, because you're either not going to stay there very long, or the company's not going to survive very long, or you're not going to do that job very long, which I found also very interesting. It's another theme in the literature. Leadership has become a surprising theme of this reading for me. It's a surprising focus. These people, Sutherland works in Slovenia, used to be at Manchester, I think, and he's talking about the idea of the transformation of experience into new forms of knowing through the arts. There's a very interesting strand of literature about using the arts, which of course would appeal to me because of what I think we're doing. And they make a distinction, citing this dude, Brigstock, about learning for power, not learning about power, which you might do in a standard leadership program. Say if you were being in your organization, you called in consultants to do a leadership program for you. You might learn about power, give you some ideas, concepts, and perhaps some practice. But this learning for power is very. They argue, and this works for me, is about being connected. If you want to be a powerful leader, you actually have to learn how to be connected to others in order to help to affect change. Another interesting question, you could well say, okay, who are these crazy people who sign up for this course? Well, it's true. These people self-select. We're not saying we haven't got a controlled sample. We're not saying there are a group of people doing something else. The closest we might get to is people doing other courses. But certainly, and this is research which I need to do in more detail, who has volunteered for this program. So far, they've come from a range of backgrounds, with a range of career aspirations. We're not looking to just fulfill one career aspiration. They are increasingly global, partly because we now take full-time students. After the first year, which is the main focus of my research, we've been able to take international students full-time. It's an incredibly difficult course to do full-time. It's brain-numbing. But they do. Consultancy, design, entrepreneurship, charities, many of them are entrepreneurial. They have already started their own business or wish to. Career development, in many cases. In some cases, it's like a gift to oneself. I've spoken to a gentleman, I don't think he's in the room, who's going to come and do it next year. As he's saying, he certainly doesn't need it for his career. I compare it very much with my publishers because I've lived that for 10 years. But there's a lot of literature about the MBA. So I'm not going to knock the MBA. Don't get me wrong, guys. I'm in a business school. That would be a very bad idea to knock an MBA. But it's interesting to compare that what motivates MBAers is percentage of the class receiving job offers. Absolutely same with my publishers. It's the first question they ask, how many of the class get a job in publishing? So it's very clear what those people want. And the other thing that they tend to look at is if you want to do an MBA, you're looking for a particular kind of job. Most of them want to do a financial or a consulting job. Very different from the MICLers. Sometimes I think we don't give them enough support to work out where they want to go, but certainly very often they don't even want to think about it. They just want to enjoy the course, and then they're going to think about it. An awful lot of them have changed career, especially in the first cohort. A bit scary, because many of them worked here. And many were quite senior, and they changed their careers. So that was interesting. We got through that. So coming back to this idea of Michael's identity workspace, I do think we offer them a lot of new knowledge, obviously. We certainly offer them a lot of different lenses through which to look at themselves. Oh, I've got lots of time then. And there's a strong reflective element which runs through the program. It's the main connecting cord, if you like, through all the modules. We use reflection in different ways. And so I'd quite like to standardise that if I could. Never mind, that's not how we do it. We let every module leader define how to use reflection. But reflection is built into the program. And so, again, we have some interesting links into the literature. This Adler, who has argued very much for the use of arts in the new world of leadership, in the ethical space in particular, to get away from some of the disasters wrought in finance and also environmentally in the best interest of business. She talks about creation. She's an artist. She's an artist professor of management. Creation, whether on a canvas of words, visual images, organizational spaces, or on the world's stage. It's about giving birth to the possibilities inherent in mystery. Not language you'd normally expect to find in a business school, perhaps, but it's gaining more currency. The broader aspect of ourselves, not simply as rational, strategic beings, which the business schools have earned a very interesting living from, or quite rich living from, over many years. I think that the MICL offers experiences that are reflective, embodied, authentic, community-based, disruptive, and artistic. We could debate any one of these all day, but I think it is the combination of rich, different, new experiences that, by and large, people are coming into and affected by. They're definitely, in my module, the one I know best, of course, I see these things develop. They are disruptive. There's no question. Apparently one of them has just been downstairs being interviewed for the Vox Pops. When asked about what most took him out of his comfort zone, he said, doing the performance. So I get that. And again, there are other people out there in the world using these ideas. Sutherland is conducting workshops in the more traditional management education context. And he feels that the aesthetic workspaces develop aesthetic reflexivity through framing, so thinking about themselves differently. Aestheticizing. Very interesting. I haven't come across this concept, but what does that mean? Think about that. De-routinizing. We're doing all these things, I believe. And I think it is innovative. I know we've got some self-selection going on. I think they're explorers, and this is what's coming, bringing people in. There is work to do here. We do balance the conceptual and the experiential. Again, memories with momentum. This is a quotation from another source. I rather like that idea. So the memories with momentum help them to they effectively change one's personal narrative. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the idea that we narrate ourselves constantly. And it is in that narration that we create ourselves. There is not a fixed self, there is a narrated self. We can only make sense backwards, so it's making new sense of ourselves. And there's a strong argument that in the VUCA working environments, volatile, uncertain, etc., we have to send people out who are able to rethink, to reimagine, to respond flexibly. So I think we're definitely helping them learn about, but also become more anaesthetized leaders. And it's interesting how persistent the MICL identity is. You'll see that lots of them here, lots of them have taken days off work to come and be here today, including people from 2012. And they almost, you can see them come back in for the community events to sort of try to plug back into that MICL energy that it gave them. I've seen transformational learning experiences which are a little bit similar. So for conclusion, I'm coming, somewhat surprisingly to myself, to the conclusion that actually the MICL is a leadership program, and it's this artistic experience that's particularly delivering that for innovators in VUCA environments. A lot of them are going out broadly to be innovators. That's what they want to do. A little bit alarmed by what we just heard from Co about the idea that innovative leaders therefore stop their teams being innovative. But it's interesting how many of them then do change their working environment because they don't find an outlet for the things that they then want to do themselves. So if you're interested in this stuff, there's my email. My Twitter is Marianne Kernan, one word without the one, obviously without the dot. And I've been tweeting a lot today. Very happy to hear from you. And I'd be very interested to have any comments or questions on that.
Thank you very much. So, the floor. Marianne, okay. Leadership, away at the very beginning, you give me the impression, and I might be wrong, that leadership was almost something from within. I met with fluid organisations and literally short-termism in roles almost. You need to be able to demonstrate leadership, if that's a word, to help you along your career path. Wherefore is the difference between the inner sense of leadership and the big wide world out there saying, oh yes, that individual demonstrates whatever good leadership is, but leadership akin to the requirements? Could you explain those?
Well, I can only explain it obviously as I understand it, because these are huge concepts. Let me just start by saying that a lot of the literature that I am reading distinguishes with MBAs between management and leadership. So, and the fact that a lot of people go out in the world without actually much experience and expect to be leaders because of that, the strategic insights they have. And a lot of the literature is saying that doesn't take account of the fact that you must have functional knowledge of your industry. And you can look at either ways, but there are quite a lot of stories of people going into a particular industry and without any experience because they have a lot of other expertise, management expertise usually, and completely wrecking quite large organisations is the argument. I'm sure you can find people who've done the opposite. I think what you're asking about is that sense, or that authentic sense of somebody that you want to follow, somebody you trust. I was interested to see the word trust come up today. Because leadership surely is being able to encourage other people to step with us, to change. I mean, an awful lot of this literature is about the difficulty of change in organisations and leaderships. And we can't ask somebody to make that step away from what they know and where they are unless there is something going on of persuasion, trust, holding, vision. There's also a very strong sense that leadership is not given and it's not a clear thing. You yourself as the leader have to trust as you step forward that it's going to be in the right direction. So you also have to manage your own uncertainty. So all I'm trying to say by saying it's integral is unless you have a sense of your own boundaries and you have confidence in your own judgment, you can't encourage people to step forward with you. That's all. I think that's very important. You can have shared leadership, but if the person is trying to give a direction, then they have to be able to persuade people forward with them. I can give models for that, but I don't know if that's precise enough for you.
That's good enough for me.
Thank you. Thank you. It's not easy to bottle, of course. We all know how difficult that is.
Questions for me?
I have a very promised a little question.
Go on.
You said a lot of people change careers as a result of doing it. Is there a sense of a general direction of travel towards or away from the corporate world? The sense I get is that people go, oh my God, I'm never going back there. I want to go and do some dancing and stuff like that instead. Is that uncharitable?
I think it's not so much dancing. I think what happens, yes, definitely a move away from corporate jobs, be that in any context that we've seen. Again, I can't give you numbers, but especially in the first cohort, there were two people, I think, who stayed in their jobs, and they kept saying, we're the exceptions, I'm really happy in my job. And a lot of that must be to do with whether you feel you have space in your role to be exploring, to be offering new ideas that they will be taken up.
Is that frustrating? Because presumably there's a place here at some point for this to actually begin injecting something back into the relatively sterile corporate world, rather than just helping people to get out.
I don't think we had that agenda. We're certainly not out to transform the world. In fact, we've
well,
as
CAS
a team.
is now offering. I mean, previously CAS wasn't quite such the headline as it is now. There must be something going on there as well.
It's very interesting that this is the first year this program has been housed in CAS, and previously we were housed. Well, across the university, we're trying to keep our heads down, to be honest, because you don't want to make too much noise in universities. But now that we are part of CAS, it's very interesting for those of us not in CAS to be watching and seeing how that will affect what's expected of the program going forward. We don't yet know. I think it's more that, just if I could say, historically, we've been surprised at the impact of the program on the people who've gone through it. That's not something you design in. You can't design in for that kind of thing. And we could only compare it to the other programs we're involved with. where it does seem to go beyond the engagement with the program, the individual pieces of learning, or beyond the fees or whatever. Very interesting watching that happen. And by and large, yes, consultancy roles. An awful lot of people want to be change agents, a lot of people want to be innovators. And it's interesting how the job world is almost adjusting to give more and more of those people space to do that. Over the 5 years, we've sent graduates out. That is changing. Seems to be.
Great, and I'll probably thank Marianne as well for taking part in this